So eventually, my original Rickenbacker, it just wasn't holding up. It needed to be replaced by a new one. And I'd played other Ricks in stores, and they just didn't feel the same. They didn't feel right. And then eventually, I found this one at a store in Florida, I believe it was, and felt great. It was wonderful. So this has now become my new mainstay. This is what I recorded all of Blinded by Vision on. Was this Rickenbacker here? Then as far as my amplifiers go, as I'd already mentioned, I'd gotten the 900 and the 8x8 when we lived in Seattle quite some time ago. When we started to kick around the idea of being a two-piece band, we thought it would be cool if I got another amplifier, which would be the SWR Super Redhead combo amp. And we bought a Boss VF1 multi-effects unit to put in with that to kind of give a little bit of an extra cool sound, kind of add some neat effects into the songs, that kind of thing. When we went in to record Blinded by Vision, at that point I was actually using my old PV combo head with a Boss distortion pedal, and that was where I got my distortion. And it had a cool sound, but the feedback was absolutely ear-splitting. So we at first thought about actually recording with that, but Joe had the idea of recording through a guitar amplifier. So what we did when I recorded Blinded by Vision is we had a Marshall half stack and a Mesa Boogie half stack dual rectifier, wall of distortion. Oh yeah. We used a little bit of both for the recording of the first CD. But then when it came time to go on tour, I went to the music store and tried them both out, and the Mesa one, hands down, it just sounded fantastic. So that's what you see over here. We've got the Mesa Boogie Dual Rectifier half stack, and a lot of people say that you can't play a bass through a guitar amplifier because you'll blow the speakers, but you know, I've been doing it for years now, and I've never had any trouble. It could be the way I play, it could be the way I have everything set, the Rickenbacker, I don't know what it is. I don't know a whole lot about the inner workings of all of it, but as far as I can tell, it works for me, so don't let people tell you you can't do anything until you try it yourself, because that would have kept me from trying to play through a guitar amplifier, which sounds absolutely fantastic, and boy, it sounds way better than playing through that old PV combo amp. So that's what the whole setup is. Now the whole problem in making it all work is how do you split the signal to go to all three amplifiers? Well, it took some trial and error, and what I finally ended up doing was getting a couple of AB boxes. I ended up with Lila boxes. They're from Germany, and the way I have it split is I have the Rick running into my tuner, and then that goes into the first AB box. The A out of that box goes into my clean signal, which is my old trusty SWR SM-900. The B goes out into the Digitech whammy pedal, which I use on a few songs with the fifth up, because that kind of gives it a little bit more of a guitar sound. Coming out of the whammy, I go back into another AB box. That A goes into the Mesa Dual Rectifier, and then the B goes into the Redhead. It sounds a lot more complicated than it is. It actually is pretty simple when you look at it and it's all set up, but it enables me then to be able to play through all three amplifiers and then switch them on and off as I need to. Sometimes I always have the 900 on, but sometimes I just want the Redhead with that. Sometimes I want the distortion. Maybe I have all three going. It just depends as I'm going through the song. And it gives a lot of cool dynamic ability because, you know, having the distortion off in the verse and then turning it on in the chorus gives, you know, big dynamic push. So it's really cool to be able to turn those on and off as I go. Now with the dual rectifier, I also have an ability to change different channels. I've got 3 different channels that I can use on that. And again, that adds a little bit more as far as dynamics go in the song, because the channel 1 has a really, really mild distortion on it. Channel 2 is a little bit more, and then channel 3 is just the full-on cool rock distortion. So as I'm going through the song, I can switch through those and change that up a little bit, and it gives me a lot more versatility. So that's basically it for the setup, and what I can do is just play a little bit through each of the different amplifiers. And incidentally, when I first started out doing all of this, I owe everything to Joe because he's the one who talked me into doing it. I always thought I would just play through my SWR 900 clean for the rest of my life, you know, take my Rick, plug it in, and it had the most beautiful sound ever. When we decided to try out this two-piece idea, I honestly didn't have the confidence in my playing ability to think that I could take over the entire sonic spectrum as far as a tuned instrument went. We started off with a keyboard and played to a sequencer and added all kinds of crazy sounds and tune and all of that kind of thing, but it just didn't sound right. It just kind of sounded bad. And so it was at that point that Joe said, you know, just why don't you distort your bass? Why don't you act like your bass is a guitar and a bass at the same time? And it really took a lot of convincing because I didn't have a lot of confidence in my playing ability. But you know, we tried it out, and once we got going with it, I started to feel a little bit more comfortable with it. And since I already naturally played really busy bass lines anyway, it all came out well. And I think, of course, it wouldn't have happened if Joe wasn't such a phenomenal drummer, because he fills in all the spots and the spaces and with all of his cool drumming. So we worked together great as a team. But that's how it all came about. So, you know, you might think that you can't do something, or you might not have ever heard of anybody doing it before, but you might as well give it a try, because you never know what's going to come out, and it could come out sounding pretty cool. So I've kind of gotten used to my role now as the only stringed instrument player on stage, but it took a little bit of getting used to. So anyway, so if we want to hear the different sounds that I've got going through the amplifiers, first I have the SM-900, which is my clean sound. Then if I want, I can add on the distortion. And then lastly, I can add the Redhead affected. The really cool thing about having the Redhead is that, you know, when you go through all the different effects and everything, it kind of gives you some ideas about how to come up with just for different song ideas. On Blinded by Vision, actually several of the songs just sprang out of me going through the different effects and hearing what they sounded like and thinking, oh, this is sounding kind of cool, and just came up with some different ideas. In fact, one of the songs is called Center Line. A lot of people ask me about that in my technique, and they think that I do slapping, which I don't. Again, it's kind of like playing with a pick. I can't get my wrist to go like that, and I kind of lose interest if I don't pick it up really quickly. So what I did in order to get that cool sound is I developed my own technique that I call spanking, because it's more of a popping with my whole hand like this. So to give you a little bit of an example of how I use the Redhead and how I kind of wrote a song around it, the song Center Line starts off with the auto wah and the clean on the SM-900 going at the same time. So it's... That's kind of using that spank technique as well. Then as you go into the chorus, we kick it in with the distortion, where it's just the distortion and the clean by themselves, and then we have all three going at the same time. So it goes like this.